Hello, hello.
Buongiorno.
Oh, she went Italian this time. I was expecting French, and then you threw in the little...
I also was expecting French, but it came out Italian.
I was going to say the end of it didn't seem as confident as the beginning was, but it worked.
Don't ask me any other Italian words.
You know how to say goodnight.
Not confident. A pizza.
Yep, there you go. That's an important
mozzarella.
one. Okay, we're getting worse. For those of you who missed our Patreon episode this month,
Pasta.
You missed Jamie speaking French, or making a solid attempt to, anyway.
Yeah, go subscribe and hear something.
If the Italian wasn't good enough, buckle up for the French. How are you, James? Answer only in Italian.
Bon. Nah.
No.
Uh.
But I think she's trying to say good, so that's good.
Yeah, what's good?
Yeah. Buono.
Buono.
There you go.
E too?
End of the school year.
It's not. And yes, in Italian is what? Or like, I'm good, how are you?
Oh, okay. We'll drop the Italian bit.
Okay. Because I said it in Spanish.
Yeah. You know what? We are a multicultural podcast here, ladies and gentlemen. That's what we're learning. If you guys want to teach us languages, that'd be sick. But yeah, I am weirdly looking forward to today's episode. Only because
he's dead.
Because he's dead. Which, in any other circumstance, would sound questionable to celebrate someone's death. I don't typically do that. This time I am. And
You'll
I'm doing
understand.
it without shame. So, I think it's best if we kind of jump right into it. So, let's celebrate the death of Canada's most prolific serial killer, Robert Pickton.
I'm Kate.
And I'm Jane, and this is Creeps and Coffee,
a show where we talk about the dark parts of the world around us.
Cryptids, conspiracies, things that go bump in the night,
and the crimes behind the scariest creatures of all, humans.
Join us as we take a look at the stories sure to give you the creeps.
Pull up a seat, grab a coffee,
and let's have a chat.
Ding dong, the Pickton is dead.
Nailed it.
Spoiler alert, he's dead. Good riddance. But,
Yeah, major good riddance.
You'll find out why.
I think almost everyone, and I mean, obviously correct me if I'm wrong, but I feel like almost everyone who has an interest in true crime in Canada has heard of Robert Pickton.
Yeah, probably.
Like I said, he's considered to be Canada's most prolific serial killer, if not one of North America's worst serial killers.
Mm-hmm.
Which, I would not, we fight with America for a lot of things. You can keep that. I don't want any more of them. I think I will take a hard pass on that.
I will observe from a distance, please.
Yep, that would be ideal. However, we have been stuck with Robert Pickton, and not only is Pickton's case one of the more intense true crime stories. I hate using the word stories because it makes it sound fictional and like it's not as serious as it is. True crime cases.
Mm-hmm.
But it's also, beyond all of that, it's one of the more unique, I would say. Which, again, is not a positive moniker. I'm not saying that in a good way. But it's almost the stuff of nightmares when you really think about it. And
ghoulish.
It's definitely... Yeah, that's actually a very good word for it. It's quite ghoulish. And it sparked a lot of conversation across Canada, across North America, and across, I guess, the true crime community.
Mm-hmm.
Just based on the sheer atrocities that this one man committed. So, all that being said, as I do with every true crime case, I think it's important to mention that this person, I hate even calling him a person because it doesn't feel justified. This individual did terrible things.
Mm-hmm.
And it is important when looking at people like Robert Pickton to see what their background is like. It does not justify anything. It does not exempt him from the atrocities that he committed. But it does give us an idea of where some of these behaviors might have started.
And this one, very obvious.
Very
It's not
obvious.
one of those, he had a perfect life at home, why did he go nuts? This
No.
one, it's like, oh.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So, looking at that, Robert Pickton was born on October 24th, 1949, to an abusive father and a very demanding, a very, I would say, hard-headed mother. His father's name was Leonard, and his mother's name was Louise. And they were a family of pig farmers in Port Coquitlam, British Columbia, which is on the west coast of Canada, for our listeners who are not in our glorious country. BC is probably one of my favorite places in the country.
Yeah,
Canada's got Canada's got some incredible spots to go see. I'm lucky enough to live in the mountains, and I love it so much. But BC has such a variety of incredible places to go see, whether that be along the water, in the mountains, in the forests. Like, BC has it all. It also has a lot of opportunity for farming in some of the smaller areas, like Port Coquitlam. So Port Coquitlam is about 27 kilometers or 17 miles east of Vancouver, which is probably the place that most of you will know about if you know anything about major Canadian cities. Usually when I go traveling, I either get asked if I know people from Toronto or Vancouver, because apparently those are the only cities that exist in the second largest country in the world. But that's neither here nor there.
Ask any singer.
Oh, don't even get me started on that. Ooh, do you know how much money I've spent traveling other places for concerts?
Yeah.
Yeah, actually, yeah, if anyone does know, it's you. You have seen it for years. Anyway, Pickton. Before I start ranting about concert prices.
Mm.
They're in Port Coquitlam. Pickton has an older sister whose name is Linda. She was sent off to live with other relatives in Vancouver because Leonard and Louise thought it was inappropriate to raise a young girl properly at a pig farm. Which, you know, says a lot about the time. I mean,
but also, was it the pig farm or was it the brothers?
100%. Yeah, I think the environment that the Picktons created definitely put Louise better off. Linda. Louise was her middle name. Put Linda better off in the long run. But then, again, this is a circumstance where you have to ask yourself, Jamie's going to roll her eyes, is it nature or nurture that causes the circumstances?
Both.
Exactly. How would Linda's environment have been different had she grown up in that world? We'll never know. She didn't. Thank God for her. I mean, still related to the piece of shit, but it is what it is, you know. Anyway, Robert and his younger brother David began working at the family farm at a very early age, as any farm kid does. This is not a unique, traumatizing experience. This is just generally the experience of someone who is born on a farm. It was the same for my dad's side of the family. They all did dairy farming for years. They all still dairy farm. The whole family gets involved. It is what it is. However, their mother was very into the idea of the farm, let's say. And she often prioritized the pigs and the farm and the homesteading aspect of things over basic aspects like the brothers' personal hygiene, the brothers' exhaustion levels. They were very often forced to work long hours raising the livestock and doing things to help their family. She often sent them to school in dirty clothes, and you have to consider that dirty clothes from a farm are different than dirty clothes from a dirty house. Obviously, you're still going to have a smell. Kids are nasty in the first place. I can say that. I work with them every day. They have a smell to them anyway. But you can definitely tell when there's people sending their kids from like an unhealthy home because they have the unwashed clothing. However, Robert and David smelt of manure. They smelt of all the scents of like gas from the machines for the tractors, everything at the farm. They had a strong smell, which earned them the nickname Stinky Piggies from their classmates. Which, like, valid given what we know now, but kids are cruel.
Yeah.
Kids are mean, and the boys didn't really know how to react to the bullying because they didn't know any life that was different than what they were given. Robert formed a quite unhealthy attachment to his mother, likely because his father was abusive, so you kind of gotta pick your battles, and I guess demanding is better than abusive, even though one could argue it's the same, but you know. He struggled in school for a long time and ended up being put in a special class after failing grade 2. At the age of 12, again, this does not justify any of his future behaviors, but it gives an indication of what his home life really was. At the age of 12, he began raising a calf at the farm, which became another attachment for him. It was something for him to care for, something to show love. 2 weeks later, after not finding it in the barn after school, he was told to check the barn again and found his cow slaughtered, which would have had detrimental psychological effects, particularly with a child who already has attachment problems. That being said, school became more of an issue. He dropped out of school in 1963, so at the age of 14, he left school to work on the farm full-time, and he began working as a meat cutter. He continued to work as a meat cutter for nearly 7 years, and then left that to work full-time at the farm. So he and his family were very well known in the community for providing meat and all sorts of cuts of different animals to the local butcher shop. It was a really big deal. In 78 and 79, Leonard and his wife passed away, and the siblings ended up inheriting the pig farm. Now, I don't know if many of you have families involved in farming or have really ever looked into the cost of livestock farms in particular, but there's big money in livestock, especially when you already have an established connection to local butchers, to locals in your community. There is big, big money. So the pig farm ended up selling in parts for about almost $5.2 million. So it's not as if Pickton was poor. It's not as if the farm was initially run down, which is almost a more unsettling thought to me, to think that it's not like, I don't want to say even like an Ed Gein situation where the house is already run down. He's kind of a creepy guy. You expect that he's going to be in an unhealthy situation. This was not the case for Pickton. Despite the fact that his mom didn't really care, he didn't have the best hygiene, he had the tools at his disposal, especially after his parents died, to be able to make something of himself in this field. Granted, different workers called the farms creepy looking, saying that it was patrolled by very large pigs, and people often described Pickton as a pretty quiet guy with occasional bizarre behavior. This would draw a lot of attention to him, despite people not really having any evidence to him being weird, just getting kind of a weird vibe from him, which, given what we know now, it's fair. So from there, it's probably easiest to jump into where the criminal background kind of starts. So it's not until Pickton is well into adulthood where we start to see more and more criminal activity pick up. I'm sure I would put a solid amount of money on it that criminal behaviors started much earlier on in his life. I wouldn't doubt at all that his antisocial behaviors and that sort of circumstance probably came out in some more unhealthy ways. Maybe not necessarily the same way we would think of a psychopath. Like, typically, if you look at psychopathy early on, if you look at the signs of conduct disorder in young children, it's going to be those people who are harming small animals or wetting the bed often. But when you're looking at a child who is already in an unhealthy or like dirty home and works in a slaughterhouse as a child, it's kind of difficult to gauge if he's murdering animals for pleasure or for his job. So we can speculate, but there is no proof before 1997. So on March 23rd of 1997, which is far too close to my birthday, I don't enjoy that at all, Robert Pickton was charged with the attempted murder of a sex worker named Wendy Lynn. Pickton was very, very well known in the community for frequenting places in Vancouver, in Port Coquitlam, where sex workers also frequented. Everybody kind of knew that my problem with talking about this is I don't want to sound insensitive and sound like a bitch, but it's also Robert Pickton, so I don't care. But in general, I need it to be pointed out that I would not talk about people like this. He was the type of person where no one was surprised that he wasn't getting laid. No one was shocked that he frequented prostitutes and got a lot of
Look
use
up a picture of him.
Yeah.
It screams, hey, I'm a serial killer.
Exactly. And I mean, smelling of manure all the time probably is not the biggest aphrodisiac in the world. I mean, everybody's got their thing. I'm not kink shaming here, but I feel like if I had to choose between a guy who smelled like shit and a guy who didn't, if those are the only defining qualities.
The scales are not balanced.
Yeah, exactly. So it was not a surprise by any means when Pickton picked up prostitutes. We'll talk about that a little bit more in detail after, but I will kind of plant the seed of information now to point out that Pickton had a particular affinity for Indigenous prostitutes, which is a whole other problem in and of itself, but we will delve into that in a minute here. But let's talk about Wendy. Wendy went back to Pickton's farm with him. He ended up stabbing her several times during an altercation that the two had at the farm. Thankfully, she managed to get free, and she was brave enough to tell the police what happened, which can be a very difficult thing to do when you are also in the process of doing something illegal. That's, again, a whole other conversation about how we can make sex work a more safe circumstance, but I digress, because we'll be here for hours if I start talking about that. She told police that he had handcuffed her, and then she had escaped after suffering several lacerations from the knife that he was using. She told them that somehow she'd managed to disarm him, and she'd stabbed him with his weapon, which was like, good for you, girl. We love to see it. He sought treatment at the Eagle Ridge Hospital, and Wendy Lynn ended up recovering at the nearest emergency room. He was arrested for this. Police kind of considered it a bad thing, but at the same time, didn't take it nearly as seriously as they should have. Because Pickton had established himself in the community through his family's farm and through his interactions with the Port Coquitlam police in general, they didn't really look at him as a person of suspicion, as a person of interest. Again, it was this is a small community and a weird guy in the small community. We're not going to judge what he's doing. He's just a weird, eccentric guy who lives on a pig farm. Which is the stupidest thing, but whatever. He ended up being released on a $2,000 bond. And the attempted murder charge that was against him was
high enough for attempted murder.
No. Fantastic thing to point out. If someone is charged with attempted murder, how are you going to put them on a $2,000 bond? Are you kidding me? The man has a $5 million pig farm? And you think he's not going to be able to post that bond? What the fuck? Anyway.
Up there. Yeah.
The charge against him was stayed on January 27th, 1998. Because, and I'm getting mad thinking about it, because Wendy Lynn had drug addiction issues, as unfortunately many people who are in the sex working community and in the homeless community tend to struggle with. Prosecutors believed her to be too unstable for her testimony to help secure a conviction. What the fuck? Let's take a pause on Robert, though. Let's talk about David. Remember David, his little brother? Creepy little David? David
Stinky.
was... yeah, Stinky Piggy number 2. David was convicted of sexual assault 5 years prior, in 1992, and he was fined $1,000 and given 30 days probation. The report from his victim stated that David had attacked her in his trailer at the pig farm, but luckily again, she managed to escape. So we've got 2 brothers with an affinity for sexual assault and physical assault, not even with sexual connotations.
Yeah.
And the cops were like, oh, but they're just weird little guys. Don't worry about it. Essentially saying, but you're a whore, so why would
you don't matter.
You? Yeah. Why would
that was sarcasm.
You? Yeah.
All sex workers matter.
100%. Oh. On a significantly less important scale. But if we're talking criminal history, it's also interesting to point out that Robert had also been sued 3 times for traffic offenses in both 1988 and 1991. All 3 of which were settled
road
out of
rage
coke.
incidents, perchance?
Well, this is the thing. Not all of these case files are available, but one can... Not to assume anything, because you don't assume, that makes an ass out of you and me, but...
My intuition, though, is telling me...
One can probably make an educated guess given our information.
Because there's a difference between like a fender bender, you exchange information, your insurances contact each other, compared to being sued 3 times for traffic offenses.
Exactly.
You're doing something.
I have also had 3 traffic offenses, all of which I dealt with on the spot because it
Did not get sued.
No, I didn't need to get sued because I wasn't doing anything bad.
You're just a little girl.
I'm just a little girl, and there's just a little ice on the road sometimes, okay? Sometimes you wreck your dad's truck, okay? It's not that bad.
Sometimes the world's a little scary.
Just shut up about it, okay? Get over it, you guys. Rumors of Pickton's illegal behaviors really ramped up around this time, and also around the founding of the Piggy Palace Good Times Society.
Woo!
Wherein Robert and David founded a group to, and I quote, organize, coordinate, manage, and operate special events, functions, dances, shows, and exhibitions on behalf of service organizations, sports organizations, and other worthy groups. This was a not-for-profit society recognized by the Canadian government.
Because nothing sounds cooler than the Piggy Palace Good Time Society.
Nothing sounds more fun than partying in a converted slaughterhouse.
Well, yeah, where else would you party? What, a bar?
Ooh.
Come on.
God,
a ballroom? Relax.
That would be ridiculous.
I want to see those bloodstains while I'm doing the boogie.
Oh, God.
I'm being sarcastic.
I think this is one of the more interesting aspects of Pickton's case as well, is that, again, you see how the community recognized that he was a weird guy and that things didn't feel right, but still went along with it because why not? Because they couldn't possibly be doing anything wrong. Pickton was known intensely for these major parties that were thrown at the Pickton farm. The events that the Piggy Palace Good Time Society held included raves and other wild parties, which often featured sex workers from the Vancouver and Port Coquitlam areas, and teenage girls all the time. So on a personal note, I'm in Alberta, for those of you who haven't picked up on that. I worked the Stampede 2 years ago now. And when you're working the markets anywhere, but especially at a convention where you're there for 10 days, you get to know the other people at the booths around you. I made fantastic friends with one of the ladies who had the booth behind me, who happened to be from BC. She, side note, had a fantastic little company that she runs with her sister, where they make jewelry out of spoons, like antique spoons and stuff.
That's cute. Oh,
Adorable.
like rings and stuff.
Yeah, you know that the big ring I used to wear on my thumb?
I remember now,
yeah. Loved her. Anyway, we get to chatting one day, find out she's from BC, and then I don't even know where the conversation went, but we started talking about true crime. And she told me that when her sister was 14, she got invited to one of these parties at Pickton's farm. Because it was the place that all the teenagers went. It was a big deal. But it was very close to when things got busted. So people had started gossiping a lot more about what was going on. The vibe was getting a lot stronger in the community that this was someone not to be trusted. Thank fucking God her mom put her foot down and said, "You are not going to Pickton's farm."
Dodged a big bullet.
Dodged an insane bullet. Can you imagine the feeling that you would have after finding out everything, to think that could have been you?
Honestly, probably a little bit of survivor's guilt in there.
100%. So she later realized that she had been to Pickton's farm before for smaller parties, still in the slaughterhouse, but not one of like the huge raves.
Yeah.
Can't even imagine how sick I would feel, especially if that was my child. Ooh.
Honestly,
so
it feels very like Final Destination. Like, you cheated me. I'm gonna get you.
100%. But then again, I think it's something like that just goes to show, yes, Canada's a very big country, but we do all kind of communicate pretty well. And having someone like Robert Pickton exist in our country within, like, the other part of this is this was not like 100 years ago. This was not the early 1900s. This was not that long ago in the grand scheme of things. I don't want to say how long ago it was, because the thought of it made me realize how old I am, and that makes me sick to my stomach. But it's not that long ago, you guys. It's not that old, okay? But everyone who's heard the story is still affected by it, whether you had a physical connection to it, like my friend and her sister, whether you hear stories in passing, like I did, whether it just becomes a conversation piece, like it so often is on the other side of the country. It is there. Anyway, so that's Pickton. That's the Piggy Palace Good Time Society. I hate saying it so much. The
PPGT Society.
Exactly. It was also a highly frequented place by the Hells Angels, which is interesting to me. You know what? I actually, controversial to say, I don't mind the Hells Angels.
I'm fine with them.
Yeah,
I'm chill.
There's a pretty strong presence of them in Okotoks. And anytime I've ever run into, it's very obvious when someone is involved. They've been the nicest men.
Yeah, no problems
Clearly-
with me. I have no problems
not-
with you.
Yeah, clearly not when someone is on their bad side, and God forbid I am ever on their bad side, but I think sometimes they're lovely. Probably not when they're partying with serial killers, but it's neither here nor there.
But hey,
You know, it is what it is, you know? But when
there's any
people-
Hells Angels out there listening to the podcast, give us an email or email
just know that we think you're probably a cool guy, you know?
email us.
I would like to ride a bike one day. That'd
Yeah.
be fun. Yep. Jamie's revving the handles.
Back to you, Kate.
So I guess this is kind of where the sheer amount of prostitutes that were coming to the farm, plus the Hells Angels that were coming to the farm, the police kind of started to pay more attention to Pickton Farm.
This is
Robert and David ignored all of this. They ignored the pressure that was happening. And in 1998, they held a New Year's Eve party. After which, they were faced with an injunction. They were faced with an injunction which
an
banned future
injection in their
parties.
face.
Exactly. They should have been. The police were given full authorization to arrest and remove any persons on the property at that event and future events at the farm. And the Piggy Palace Good Times Society's nonprofit status was removed the following year because they were unable to provide financial statements that showed that they were an actual functioning member of society and doing something positive other than throwing ragers.
You're not Freddy Fazbear's Pizzeria.
No, God no. Following the complete disbandment of the society, even more conversation in the community would pop up regarding the Pickton's illegal activities. So this is where the prostitute conversation kind of comes in. Like, there's different things to mention at any given point, but people knew without a shred of a doubt that he was into prostitutes and that he often had hordes of them at his place at any given time, whether there was a party or whether he was just trying to have a good time, supposedly. Particularly, again, indigenous sex workers. When groups of these indigenous sex workers started going missing, it seemed to mysteriously go over everyone's heads that Pickton
Racism.
could truly be involved. And 1,000%, it ties into...
And systemic racism. Because police, hello?
Exactly. So that's, like, took the words out of my mouth. that it ties directly into the continuous problem of systemic racism that the Canadian police have, particularly the RCMP, when it comes to missing Indigenous women. We say, this is a side tangent, but they say that Robert Pickton is one of the most prolific serial killers in Canada. However, there is a continually growing number of missing and endangered young Indigenous women who were completely swept under the rug, despite the fact that they go missing in very similar areas under incredibly similar circumstances and have for decades.
And what's being done?
Absolutely nothing.
The only times I've seen missing posters and stuff for especially like missing Indigenous women, it's me seeing it from like my own personal like Facebook account. A friend is sharing it, or on Snapchat. I'm not seeing anything on the news.
No.
I'm not hearing it on the radio. I'm nothing. Silence. And it's like, okay, we see where your priorities lie.
Well, 100%. A prime example of the systemic racist problem that we have in Canada is the residential schools.
Yeah.
Again, that is a whole other topic of conversation, and one that I would absolutely love to have one day.
Yes.
But this is a continually proven fact, not an opinion, a fact that the Royal Canadian Mounted Police and all divisions of Canadian police across the country have a systemic issue where not only are Indigenous women not looked at as people, but sex workers are also not looked at as viable humans.
Yeah.
So in a situation like this, where there's Indigenous sex workers that are going missing, the police could not give less of a shit.
Mm-hmm.
And it's devastating. And like I'm getting angry talking about it because it's bullshit. Across the board, every single individual should get the same amount of urgency when something goes wrong. But it is proven time and time again and continues to be proven. That's what makes me mad, is this is not a previous issue. This is a consistent present day issue that these women are not cared for by our country.
Yeah.
Point blank, period.
Can I also add to this tangent?
Absolutely.
From not an opposing side, but I want to talk to the people in uniform, if there are any listening. Because I have friends and family who do wear uniforms, be military, RCMP, whatever.
100%.
And when I've had this discussion with them about like ACAB, 1312, they get mad and they're like, but that's not true. I'm a good person. I'm a good guy. Okay, you're in the minority. As a whole, these groups don't care. Sure, you individually, like, that's like me saying, oh, I'm a white person, but I don't have white privilege. Nuh-uh. Yeah, you do. Shut up. Like, I do what I can individually to make a difference, but there is still a bigger problem that I have to help solve. Like, one person won't do it all.
Well, and this is the thing too, is one person won't do it all. However, my favorite argument to like counteract that point, because again, Jamie, you and I have the same family essentially at this point in our lives. It's the same thing. I have so many people in Jamie's family, in my side of the family, that are also in uniform, also like service members. But my favorite argument to that is that absolutely, if you look at 1 in 10 cops, the likelihood is that one of them is a really shitty person. But if you look at it in a circumstance like this, if you have hordes of missing Indigenous sex workers that there's no trace, but you know for a fact that the last place that they were seen was this guy's farm, where there's consistent problems, but you say, nah, I don't care, she's a prostitute, she's Indigenous, those are not things that I care about. Those are not people in my book. If you have one officer that says that, and you have 9 fantastic officers who work hard, who try to change the opinion of the community, but they don't say anything to that one officer, you no longer have 1 versus 9. You have 10 officers who have failed their duty.
Yeah, you can't be a bystander. What do they teach you in grade 1? Don't be a bystander.
Mm-hmm. So it doesn't matter what you are doing. No matter how good of an individual you are, in what you're doing, if you are not continuing the conversation and standing up for what
You're part
you
of the
believe
problem.
is right, you are the problem. And everyone in this case...
Silence is complicit.
Exactly. Everyone in this case was complacent because they did nothing. To the point where, and we'll talk about this later too, when we talk about trials and convictions and the actual case itself, but to the point where several times multiple police departments had to issue formal apologies over periods of years because there was such a vicious uproar of the complete failure of duty that the officers in this community had. And to kind of jump off my soapbox a little bit here again, Jamie's absolutely right. The majority of individuals in the service go into it for the right reasons because they want to serve and protect properly. And I've had fantastic interactions. I used to work with police in my career. I worked with them every day. I had fantastic relations. I watched them protect our community. But again, one bad apple spoils the bunch. And denying that just because your feelings might get hurt, that someone might not inherently trust you because of your badge, is not going to change the fact that that badge holds a lot of negative connotations for people in these marginalized communities. And again, the Pickton case and the victims that have come out of it are no different. So that is, in and of itself, a major aspect of this case. I think it's also interesting that the idea of these particular officers not really seeing the potential victims, at this point, all they know them as is missing persons, not really identifying them as humans, is kind of just a juxtaposition of how Pickton ended up viewing them in the end. It's an absolute empathy deficit at the end of the day. Because while these officers looked at these victims not as people, but as inconveniences, Pickton looked at these victims not as bodies, but in every circumstance he ever described them, not as victims, as carcasses.
Because he said before, like, his goal was to get 50 of them.
We're going to talk about that. Hold your horses there. You got it. So, because he's become a staple in this community, and this is the circumstance that people are paying attention to,
like they're just a number.
Pickton kind of sees this as an exciting and heroic adventure as him versus the cops now. Because he has to keep fostering his relationship as the local butcher and keep, like, changing the perspective that these officers have ever so slightly to keep himself out of the limelight. It's an adventure for him. So he's not considered any sort of a problem seriously until it's far too late. And that's when we get into 2002. So Pickton Farms were never highly investigated for much until February 6, 2002, when police executed a search warrant for illegal firearms at the Pickton property. Pretty, I mean, still not a great thing to be dealing with. You shouldn't have illegal firearms. But pretty run-of-the-mill circumstance, especially for, I feel like for farmers, there's more likely going to be weapons there.
Yeah.
Protect the land, protect the animals, slaughter what needs to be, like, it is what it is. Both Robert and David were arrested, and police ended up obtaining a second warrant using what they had seen on the property to search the farm as part of the British Columbia missing women investigation.
Finally.
It would, finally. So this is 2002 we're talking. It has been years of these women going missing.
Mm-hmm.
It wouldn't be until this search where they found an asthma inhaler prescribed to an Indigenous woman who had been labeled as a missing person.
Mm-hmm.
And it was then that alarm bells started ringing.
But
did that work out super well?
no.
No. And of course it didn't, because nothing.
Because that's
can be...
not enough evidence.
No, apparently not enough evidence. So, luckily, Pickton was charged with weapons offenses. They were not kept for very long, and both of the Pickton brothers were released, but Robert was kept under police surveillance. Now they had suspicions, but when all they had was an inhaler, and he's known for having sex workers at the farm, it's not really enough evidence. Could it have been enough to start a greater search? Yes.
Yeah, why would
However,
that not have been enough for, like, a search warrant?
That's a fantastic question.
So, like, 3 weeks later, I think, February 22nd, 3 weeks too late, honestly, Robert was finally arrested again and charged with 2 counts of first-degree murder. Only 2 counts of first-degree murder. In the deaths of Serena... Do you know how to say that?
Abbott's Way.
Abbotsway and Mona Wilson.
Initially, there's those 2 first-degree murder counts.
Yeah.
This would change very quickly.
Mm-hmm.
And on April 2nd, there would be 3 more charges added.
Mm-hmm.
There would then be a 6th charge added on April 9th, and then a 7th shortly thereafter. Excavations would continue on the Pickton farm because obviously they are now finding much more information. They are now realizing what a major fuck up they've made.
Yeah.
And on September 20th, 4 more charges would be added.
Mm-hmm.
Another 4 on October 3rd. 12 more on May 26th of 2005. So we're now 3 years into this.
Mm-hmm.
And at this point, it brings the total to 27 charges of murder.
Mm-hmm.
It is estimated that Robert Pickton murdered between 27 and 49 women.
Honestly, I feel like he could have killed more, but...
This is the thing. So, he initially denied and pled not guilty to any of this.
Mm-hmm.
So, the excavations at the farm started in 2002 through to November 2003. Up until the end of 2003, it's estimated to have been about $70 million put in to properly excavate the Pickton farm. As of 2023, so current day, that land is owned by the Crown of British Columbia, and there are still investigations going on, and there probably will be for a very long time. The reason that it took so long was because forensic analysis was very difficult without full bodies. And the fact of the matter is that Pickton got away with getting rid of the bodies of these women by feeding them to his pigs. So when murdering these women, and I will not, as always, will not go into significant detail because that's not necessary whatsoever. This man is disgusting and his actions don't need detail given for sick people who want to hear that. If that's what you're interested in, you can find a different show to tell you. But it is believed that he either fed these bodies, like his game plan was to either feed these bodies to his pigs, cut them up in his slaughterhouse as he would with the pigs, because again, to him, they were nothing more than carcasses.
Mm-hmm.
Or he would dispose of them using his industrial meat grinder and scatter their remains across the land. So forensic analysis is very difficult when some of these bodies have been eaten by pigs, some of them have been eaten by insects, and it is also a major point of contention in the story, but there was a government health release in 2004 to warn individuals that Pickton may have used the ground up human flesh and mixed it with pork that he sold to the butcher shops.
Probably.
Again, not going to assume, but I think it's highly likely that something like that would have happened. There is later stuff pointed out that apparently he wasn't selling the human meat that he mixed with pork, but he would give it to close friends and family.
That's not better.
It's not better whatsoever. It's also interesting to point out, I watched a couple of videos of like medical analysts talking about this case and saying that it's one thing that people don't really realize is how similar human flesh is to pork.
Oh, yeah.
And how easy it would have been, even if the cops had walked into the slaughterhouse, to not be able to decipher a pig leg and a human leg once they'd been skinned.
Yeah, well, when my dad had surgery, he cut his hand. Well, he chopped his hand with an axe by accident one year.
Yeah.
And he showed me pictures from surgery. And the first thing I said was, like, that looks like ground beef, like from a cow. And he was like, no, that's my hand. And it's like, oh, they're the same.
Well, think about it too. Realistically, sometimes when we need organ donation, sometimes when we need skin grafts for things, they use pig.
Yeah.
Because it is eerily similar.
So what I'm hearing is he's also possibly cannibal.
Well, possibly. There's never...
Because if he's giving out to friends and family...
Yeah.
Let's be honest, he doesn't have many friends and family.
No, but there's never been claims of him eating the meat himself.
I'll claim it. I think he did.
But there's also a high likelihood that he is a sadist who's getting off on the thought of giving these people something and telling them something else. But with him being the only person that really knows... Look at someone like Jeffrey Dahmer. Trying to feed people human. Like, unfortunately, it's not a unique circumstance. But it was a public health warning that they needed to understand. If they bought meat from the local butcher, there was a chance that it had, if not been mixed with, had come into contact with human flesh because he was slaughtering them in the same slaughterhouse. When a preliminary hearing was held for everything, they finally analyzed the clothing and the boots that Pickton was wearing during the initial assault of Wendy Lynn that we talked about earlier. And they found on his boots that were in the RCMP storage locker that the DNA of 2 of the missing women were on the items.
Yeah.
So had they checked that years and years before, they would have had enough of an indication to search. But again, it was not important enough because she had drug addiction issues and was a sex worker.
Yeah.
That being said, this is probably the aspect of this case that almost pisses me off the most. An element of this case that bothers me more than it should, I should probably say. Not the thing that pisses me off the most, because that's the murder aspect of it.
Yep.
But pisses me off more than it should, is that after Pickton was arrested, a witness came forward. There was a woman named Lynn Ellingson, who for a brief time, lived on Pickton's farm with him in the main house. She came forward to authorities claiming that she saw Robert Pickton hang a woman from a meat hook and skin her. The story was given that she and Pickton went out to pick up a prostitute. They met the sex worker, and she didn't want to get in the car because she didn't want to drive all the way to Pickton's farm. She wanted to stay in the safe area that she knew around, like, her territory.
Mm-hmm.
But when she saw that there was a woman in the car, she felt safer.
Yeah.
And she didn't hesitate to then go with him. What Lynn initially claimed was that she didn't tell anyone about it out of fear of losing her own life.
Mm.
What she later admitted was that when the group of them got back to the farm, she went to her room. She left Pickton with the sex worker and came back to see what he was doing to her.
Mm-hmm.
And instead, by full admission from her, used it as blackmail on more than one occasion because she wanted cheaper accommodations. I cannot explain to you how upset that makes me. The thought
supporting
of
women.
Exactly. We are already in a world where it is so difficult to find safety as a woman that we'd like to think that we can at least rely on each other, if nothing else. And to use the life of another woman, not just the life, but the sanity, the joy, the experience of life of another woman, and letting that be taken away so that you can have cheaper accommodations. The fact that you would want to live in a house where a man feels free to hang a woman from a meat hook in front of you.
Yeah.
It's disgusting.
That's like if I was like, oh yeah, I'm gonna kill a bunch of people on my street so they lower rent.
Yeah.
Hey, you're a sociopath.
Exactly. But that's the thing, is she thought she was going to get sympathy for it without realizing that she is just like the police, just as much a part of the problem. And I again could rant about it for hours because I think it's deplorable. I think it's disgusting, and I think that she also should have been put behind bars for, at the very least, being an accomplice.
Yep.
Makes me actually sick. Anyway, it's not about her, it's about the man that actually murdered these women and fed them to his pigs. So again, as I briefly mentioned before, Pickton didn't want to admit to any of this. He pled not guilty. It was this back and forth game of him versus the cops.
Mm-hmm.
Pickton was stupid.
A little bit.
The cops knew.
He failed grade 2.
He failed 2nd grade and dropped out of school at 14. The man spent more time with pigs than humans. And pigs are pretty smart animals. Didn't rub off on Robert.
No.
So the cops knew, based on the back and forth relationship that they had with Pickton, and they had finally caught on to this heroic adventure idea that he set out for himself. They knew that they could get him. So their plan was to plant someone in the cell with him, posing as another inmate, to see if they could get him to confess. It's important to point out that this does not count as entrapment. This is not a super illegal. This is a tactic used by the police. They didn't force him to say anything. They didn't force any information out of him. But they created this bond with him and the undercover officer in his cell, which allowed him to essentially slip up.
Oopsies.
And he got too cocky. He got too confident.
Oh no.
And he fucked himself over. He admitted to this undercover officer that he made his own grave by being sloppy. And
well, as Jojo Siwa says, karma's
a bitch. Told this officer, essentially, that not only was it him versus the cops, but it was him versus American serial killers. That it was his goal. He thought 49 was a weird number, but he assumed that he had gotten to 49. And he was so eager to get to 50 murders for, and I quote, the big 5-0.
Can he even count? I don't.
But he was so eager to do that and be the most prolific serial killer ever, not just in Canada, that in his rush he got sloppy, and that let the police get to him. He said, I was going to do one more to make it an even 50. But like Jamie mentioned earlier, given the psychopathy, not even psychopathy, the sociopathy that this man portrays, he would not have stopped at 50. He wouldn't have stopped until he got caught.
Yeah.
And the fact that he got to 49 is fucking disgusting.
I think he might have done more, I'm going to be honest. I
Lots
think
of
he
people
might have lost count.
But that's the thing. Unless you're keeping fervent track of things, how do you know? But another thing that this conversation that he had with the undercover officer displays, not just his stupidity, because in the end, that's what got him caught.
Yeah.
You can't deny what you've said to this guy. They have it on tape. He had a wire on. He's an undercover police officer. You throw that in court, it's really hard to deny your own words.
Yeah.
But it also displays his egocentricity. One of the things that he says is, he'll be nailed to the cross. So immediately he's likening himself to Jesus, thinking he's untouchable, thinking that potentially he has a chance to be resurrected as this major figure in a positive way, that people who are sick like him are going to look up to him.
No.
No. So he fucks himself over.
Jim Jones?
Well, and you saw how well that worked out for him. Jamie, tell us about the trial. Please let me stop talking.
The trial began January 30th, 2006. Pickton pleaded not guilty to 27 charges of first-degree murder in the Supreme Court of British Columbia. I also want to say, hey, nuh-uh. Listen to this. I'm gonna say this, and then I want to describe some of the stuff, unfortunately, that the media ban lifted, and it's some really messed up stuff. But on December 9th, 2007, the jury found Pickton not guilty on 6 counts of first-degree murder. First of all, disagree. I think it was premeditated, and I'll explain why. But they found him guilty on 6 counts of second-degree murder.
Which is bullshit.
Yeah. You're telling me it wasn't premeditated. Yeah, okay. He's not picking up hookers, bringing them back to his farm repeatedly, killing them, slaughtering them, feeding them to pigs. That's not premeditated?
Maybe if anything, maybe the first one wasn't premeditated. Maybe he had the idea and got the confidence in the moment to make it happen. Sure. The other 26?
Potentially 49? Disagree. But on December 11th, 2007, after reading 18 victim impact statements, the judge decided to sentence Pickton to life with no possibility of parole. So that's 25 years, which is the maximum punishment in Canada you can do for second-degree murder. Yes, Caitlin.
Which is also bullshit.
Yeah.
Look, I know there's a lot of points of contention about the death penalty. I'm not going to get into it, I promise. Why is 25 years the maximum sentence in this country? Ridiculous.
For murder.
For anything.
If I killed people now, I could get out in my mid-50s and still live probably another 25 to 50 years. That's not life.
Exactly. No! You are taking You are taking the lives of dozens of individuals, and you get my current lifetime?
Yeah.
At most? What the fuck are we doing here?
Yeah.
Anyway,
Abby mentioned before that she thinks it should be, like, equal to how long approximately all of the victims would have lived.
Exactly.
Because some people have different lifespans. You know, someone who's chronically ill has a different lifespan than someone else.
Give me the average lifespan. If you murder a child,
yeah,
they are expected to live 75 years old, let's say.
So you should go for 75 years. You murder 10 kids, you're in there for 1,000 years. I know that you'll die way before then, but hey.
But as you should. You should know
the principle
that there is
of the thing.
Exactly, it's the principle of the thing. Oh. Anyway, sorry, James.
It's okay. So, to add on to this, hey, I think it was premeditated, during the media ban lift, they released a bunch of different evidence they found. They found about 80 unidentified DNA profiles, half female, half male.
The dildo gun.
Yup. They have a dildo gun. So it was a loaded .22 revolver with a dildo over the barrel with one round fired. There was ammunition, night vision goggles, handcuffs, a syringe with blue liquid inside. I'll get to that. And the gun, according to Pickton, was the dildo on it was supposed to be like a silencer. But it was probably used for more nefarious things, let's be real.
I would also like to point out...
Also, that won't work.
It's not going to work. But also, if it's a decent dildo, it's going to vibrate too. It's not silent.
Yeah, that's not how it works.
No, unfortunately, they are quite loud.
And the blue liquid. I wonder. A video was also released of Pickton's friend and him discussing a good way to kill a female heroin addict was to inject her with windshield washer fluid. I wonder what was in that syringe with the blue liquid. Another tape was released mentioning Pickton and an associate, Andrew Bellwood, talking about killing sex workers by handcuffing and strangling them and bleeding them, gutting them, and feeding them to pigs. Hey, sounds premeditated, but anyway. There was also photos found of victims in the garbage. So, maybe that's just me, but screams premeditated to me. On December 9th, 2007, Pickton was convicted of second-degree murder in the deaths of 6 women. Only 6. So that was Marnie, Georgina, Brenda, Andrea, Mona, and Serena. Pickton also stood accused of first-degree murder in the deaths of 21 other women. These charges were stayed August 4th, 2010. So a long time later, but whatever. Pickton was also implicated in the deaths, but not charged with the murders of 3 other women. So he...
And then again, implicated himself, but not in a legal sense, for up to 49. There's just, again, with the excavations, it's hard to find DNA evidence to back this up.
During a court hearing on August 4th, 2010, Judge Williams stated that Pickton should be committed to a federal penitentiary. Up to that point, he was just being held at a provincial pretrial institute. So in 2018, finally, he was transferred from Kent Institution in British Columbia to Port Cartier Institution in Quebec. Oui. So and also, he became eligible for parole in 2014. Day parole, but no parole board of Canada hearing scheduled. Teehee, I wonder why. 2004. 2024.
Oh my god.
2024.
So, to add on to that, absolutely. There's so much back and forth in these trials. We honestly can't even go into it, and I can't even, fathom it in my brain.
Yeah.
Which is why I'm not even gonna.
It's a lot of legal jargon, too.
It's a lot of legal jargon, essentially to say, back and forth, there was constant appeals to the convictions from both the prosecution and defense, to the point where the Supreme Court did get involved, which is why it was ultimately Judge Williams' decision that he needed to switch penitentiaries.
Mm-hmm.
There was so, like, when I say this was a messy trial, there was constantly, was it premeditated? Was it not? Do we have enough evidence for these families? Do we have enough evidence for these convictions? Or can we just implicate him? Can we even talk about this? The media ban was a whole other thing because this trial was so publicized, but at the same time there was so much information that was so gruesome, they didn't want the public to have access to it. There was a point where the whole prosecution had to be discontinued. It was a whole process that was a shit show. This is where the apology by the police department comes in. The deputy chief of the Vancouver Police Department released a statement apologizing to the victims' families on behalf of the Vancouver Police Department. Too little, too late. But all of this back and forth really made for, again, not just a super publicized trial. Webby's digging in the couch. It's not only a very publicized trial, but a very, very complicated trial. And for all of that to happen and for him to only get 25 years is disgusting. But you're right. In this year, in February of this year, he became eligible for day parole. And I vividly remember texting you when I found that out and being like, what the fuck?
Mm-hmm. I heard it on the radio and I was like, no.
The fact that someone like this could possibly... The likelihood of him receiving the day parole at the end of the day was slim to none. But given the complications in the trial itself and the back and forth, there was no guarantee that he wouldn't have been offered day parole. There was no guarantee whatsoever. While we'd like to believe in the system and believe that they wouldn't release someone like that into the public, we can also look at how the system didn't consider a monster like him a problem until it was far too much of a problem for them to handle. So, very much to the dismay of not just the victims' families, but the general public, he was up for day parole. And it was a major...
Within our lifetime, he got convicted and could have been released, like...
Oh, exactly. Like, it's insane. And, again, to show how much Canadians are all affected, it was a problem all across Canada. Because no one in BC wanted him there. Particularly, like, if he would have been at the Kent Institution, he wouldn't have survived a day. I promise you that. If his feet touched public land, he would have been gone in a day. No one in Quebec wanted to deal with him because he's a fucking disgusting disgrace of a human being. There was not a single province in this country who would have been okay with taking him. And I need that to be like a point blank period. We were not having it.
But again, Quebec's not part of Canada.
No, but Quebec wants it to be all... Tabarnak, everything is terrible all the time. Quebec is a whole other place. However, Quebec would be the place where Robert Pickton would end up seeing his final days. There wasn't even a chance for a parole board hearing to be scheduled to see if he would even be able to have a conversation about seeing the light of day, because Pickton would be assaulted by a fellow inmate just 3 months later. So, following his transference from the Kent Institution to Port Cartier, he ran into a prisoner named Martin. And thank you, Martin. Martin, it was described as having a history of assaulting other prisoners. So, questionable? Yes. Do I agree with Martin in the circumstance? Absolutely. It should be pointed out that Pickton spent a long time away from the general population because they knew that there would be a major outcry for having someone like him in the Gen Pop, essentially, which is a further problem when it comes to the judiciary systems here, and the penitentiary systems, I should say, not really the judiciary. But the fact that these people almost get, like, the worse the crime and the more publicity a case gets, these people tend to get almost like a special safety treatment, because they know that you're putting them in with hardened criminals.
I don't think they should have this. Let them reap what they sow.
But exactly. The same fear that rapists have, the same fear that child predators have.
You should be scared.
Stop. You should
you
be
done
scared.
messed up. You're a criminal.
You fucked up. You should be scared of the repercussions of your actions. If you can't do the time, don't do the crime. That's something that I tell my kindergartners.
I want those gang members to mess you up in the showers, like.
Exactly. You have been praying.
Well, you were probably asking for it. You were showering, so what were you wearing?
You have been preying on the downfall of these marginalized communities for your entire life and your entire criminal history. Own up to it.
Sucks.
If you're so proud that you can cut up these women and treat them as if they are carcasses and not humans with lives, families, and souls, then I see no problem in you being able to look someone in the eye and stand up for your actions, unless you understand that it was fucking wrong. Again, lessons
Martin
that I
did
teach
us a favor.
lessons that I teach my kindergartners that they can grasp, no problem.
Empathy
anyway.
101.
Exactly. Anyway, so Martin speared Robert Pickton in the head with a broken broom-like handle.
And stabbed him in the neck with a toothbrush.
He sure did.
Shiv.
Yes, a shiv. Pickton was airlifted to a hospital and put on life support. Quite frankly, it would have been one of the first times where I would be okay with people in positions of power looking at someone suffering and going, oh, didn't see it, don't know what happened. But, you know, it is what it is. They rushed him to the hospital. I remember, again, getting the news alert that Pickton was on life support, sending it to Jamie. He didn't die right away, but Robert Pickton would die from his injuries on May 31st, 2024.
And I remember getting a text, you just said, Pickton dead. And I was like, hold up. And I started calling people. I called my mom, and I was like, Pickton's dead. And she was like, who? What happened?
I posted about it on Instagram. I also texted my mom. I texted my boyfriend. I was like, today's a great day. I started playing Ding Dong the Witch is Dead from The Wizard of Oz.
I think I was at work, and I was like telling people too, and then when people were like, who? I was like, so in the 1990s. and then afterwards they were like, oh yay.
On a small farm in Port Coquitlam, 27 kilometers outside of Vancouver.
Yeah. He was 74 when he died, so.
Given the fact that he is now no longer around, I wouldn't be surprised if access to his story became more apparent in the media. That being said, just because there's not a movie about Robert Pickton does not mean that his case has not made a fantastic impact on true crime in media. There's a couple things I'm going to mention. There are a couple of circumstances where he has inspired certain things in the media. Jamie and I will talk about our particular favorite in 1 minute, because that's really the only one that we're going to dive into. But to talk about the impact that Pickton's case has had on media, other than what Jamie and I are mainly going to talk about, his case became a major plot line in the Canadian crime drama Da Vinci's Inquest, which was a crime drama TV show that aired from 1998 to 2005. Never a super popular show, but there was a loyal following, and I do vaguely remember watching it at some point. There was a major plot line wherein there was a bunch of missing women thought to be the victims of a serial killer that was hunting in Vancouver's downtown east side. They don't directly refer to Pickton, but starting in the 5th season of the show, characters and advertisements in the show made reference to the pig farm in relation to the case. So, more likely than not, it was in reference to that. It became a very popular story in the media in August of 2006, where a 27-year-old man from Fremont, California claimed that he had received 3 letters from Robert Pickton in response to almost inquiry letters that he had sent to Pickton under an assumed identity. He claimed that his motivation in releasing the letters was to help the public gain insights into Pickton, and those letters became actually pretty valid insights on the case. There was a minor horror film loosely based on the Pickton killings called Killer Pickton in 2005, 2006. Didn't have high actual connections, wasn't received very well. Another film that was in discussion came in 2015. This film had a working title of Full Flood. It was being produced by CBC TV in Vancouver, and it was based on a book called On the Farm, written by Stevie Cameron, and it was supposed to use the life experiences of Pickton's victims for a fictional story about women in the downtown East Side who ended up becoming victims of a serial killer. The film ended up being released in 2016 under a different title of Unclaimed, and also as On the Farm in certain markets. Again, both of these films, though technically being based on Pickton's experiences, were highly fictional and very loosely based on the circumstances surrounding Pickton's crimes. So they're not really considered to be good indicators of like a movie. If you look at something like, oh my god, what was the Ted Bundy movie with Zac Efron? The Dahmer TV show, where things do have some sort of fictionalized aspect to a certain extent, but are loosely biographical. Are largely biographical. So those, while being Hollywood versions of these stories, are still relatively well connected to the actual stories, right? Whereas things like Killer Pickton or Unclaimed are not good indicators of the actual story behind the crimes. So they're not really widely recognized. In 2011, a Vancouver artist named Pamela Masick planned to mount an exhibition called The Forgotten at UBC's Museum of Anthropology. It was supposed to feature some portraits of some of Pickton's victims. Unfortunately, UBC ended up declining to host it after there was some controversy, so that did not go ahead. But that was another medium of media that was going to showcase it. There's minor autobiographies, a purported autobiography. In 2024, my boyfriend was actually the one to tell me about this. There was a comedy group called the Danger Cats that were selling t-shirts online. They had a bunch of like Canadian, like goofy shirts, whatever. They overstepped the boundary a little bit. And here's the thing. I love to joke. I love dark humor. I'm a goofy guy. I'm a goofy gal, you know? I think dark humor is great when it's warranted. They sold t-shirts online with a caricature of Robert Pickton, headlined with Pickton Farms, and the tagline was over 50 flavors of hookery smoked bacon.
No.
Yeah.
Too far.
Yeah. Big time. The shirt obviously caused major controversy. Again, I'm happy with dark humor. That's actually just disgusting.
Yeah.
The Premier of British Columbia expressed a statement saying that he was deeply disappointed by the idea that the lives of vulnerable women could be trivialized like this. And I think it's important to point out that it's in the age of social media that we're in, where as a generation, the next generation of kids seem to be quite desensitized to a lot of things. we have to maintain a sense of humanity. And there is actually nothing funny about 50 women being brutally murdered and fed to pigs.
Yeah.
I
Like,
don't think it should be controversial to say that.
Hypothetical deaths and hypothetical jokes. Sure, I'm all for it.
Completely.
But, like, making a joke about, like, a real true crime case, I don't think so.
That being said, upcoming shows from the Danger Cats were canceled, and the shirt was removed from their online store.
Good.
Quickly, but not quickly enough. Let's go to 2009.
Yeah, the damage has been done.
Is a 2-part finale to the best show that has ever aired on television. Criminal Minds.
Supernatural.
Oh, that too. Shit. Criminal Minds. Season 4 of Criminal Minds had a 2-part finale called To Hell, and then the other one was called End Back. And it was based on the storyline, or it based the storyline on Pickton's case. If you know anything about Pickton's case, it kind of slapped you in the face with things. It was very obvious. But they did a fantastic job of still keeping a twist, which I thought was interesting. Yeah, so, not to spoil anything, although it came out in 2009. That was, oh my god, that was 15 years ago. Ooh, it came out 15 years ago, so you probably, if you haven't seen it by now, that's kind of on you. But spoiler alert,
I'm telling you now.
Yeah. They changed the name, so obviously they didn't call him Robert Pickton. The character was Mason Turner. And instead of it taking place in British Columbia, they kept it Canadian, and they had it just across the border in Ontario. They used a lot of key details, including, and most importantly, 2 brothers who lived on a rundown family pig farm who would abduct sex workers and homeless women and bring them back to the farm, abuse them before feeding the remains to the pigs. And instead of it being an asthma inhaler that tipped off the team, it was a shoe. So, equally as simple of an object,
Yeah.
that unraveled the entire case. Arguably, the best season finale in Criminal Minds.
Oh, yeah.
Controversial
I
statement,
agree.
but I'm going to say it.
I agree. I've only seen, I think, 6 seasons, but I still agree.
It was very well done, very respectful to, because it's very difficult when you're basing something off of a real crime. Like, doing shows like Criminal Minds are very difficult because you want to stay true to real life while also not, again, trivializing those things that were real life, right? You don't want to use someone's very vulgar death as an entertainment plot and make that, like, take away the seriousness of the story behind it by making it this big twist when it's based on something as grave as this case.
Absolutely.
So, do I have a bias about Criminal Minds? 1,000%. But do I genuinely feel, as someone involved in, like, the arts and as just a viewer of a show, do I feel they did a fantastic job? Absolutely. So I don't know. I just, because you guys don't hear enough of my voice, there's my thoughts on that.
That's okay. This was a you episode.
See, all of this to say, fuck Robert Pickton. I'm happy the bastard's dead. Canada's better off without him. The world's better off without him. Canada has a major problem with systemic racism, and we need to support Indigenous women. We need to help continue the discussion. We need to make sure that we are not complacent, because like Jamie said, silence is complacency. It's bullshit to not bring that up when you're having a conversation about a crime like this. The Vancouver police still owe more apologies. I'm going to keep saying it. The fact that you still haven't released the land means that you still know that there's more on there. Just saying. And, yeah, this was just, we were overdue for a true crime episode, and it just so happened to be perfect timing that Pickton got a shank to the head.
What a shame. No hair off my back. Is that the same? I don't have
not sure.
hair on my back. I don't think. There's not a lot. I don't care that he's dead.
If you want to let us know your opinions on Robert Pickton's case, even about his death, about the trial, anything, if you want to let us know how you heard the story of Pickton, if you've heard it before, if you're one of our Canadian listeners, how has it affected you in the province where you live? Is it something that's discussed? I want to know. I want to know it all. You can let us know by sending us an email over at creepsandcoffee@gmail.com. You can send us a message and give us a follow over on our Instagram and our Twitter at creepsandcoffee. Or you can go above and beyond and become an extra special one of our supporters over at our Patreon, which is patreon.com/creepsandcoffee. Over there you have the ability to access our exclusive member tier, which is called the SAS Squad, wherein you can get exclusive access to an extra special bonus episode every month. You get behind the scenes information about us, our show, and the inner workings of the weird one brain cell that Jamie and I share, which might dissuade you from supporting us. And I would get it. That's fair.
But also come celebrate Robert's death with us on Patreon.
Absolutely. You also get a very special shout out at the end of every single one of our episodes. And we would love to see you there. With all that being said, I'm going to shut up now because I've been talking for a long time. And I know this is a podcast, but you gotta be tired of my voice by now. It's crazy.
Yeah. Not me saying I'm sick of your voice. I'm just agreeing with your statement in the friend way.
No, I get it. It's fine.
Breaking up. Hello? Hello?
You breaking up with me? Oh, God. Goodbye, I love you.
Bye.
Creeps and Coffee is produced and edited by us, Kate and Jane.
Our theme music is Stuck in a Hole by Dated.
For more information on where to find them, check out the link in our show notes. And to connect with us, follow us on Instagram and Twitter at Creeps and Coffee.